For Indigenous speakers, the one thing that I would love for them to know about the International Indigenous Speakers Bureau is that we are here as a family. We're here as a family, and we are completely dedicated to trying and elevate their success. So we're not here to take from them, we're here to help bring to them. Hi, Tansei. My name is Shannon Loutitt. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the International Indigenous Speakers Bureau. I was born and raised in Treaty 8 and Treaty 6 territory alongside my Cree, Métis and Dene family. I come from a long line of Indigenous land people of the North and a very proud Indigenous world. As a result of my upbringing, I've become very familiar and very accustomed to ensuring that Indigenous knowledge and perspectives are in different spaces. The seed for IISB kind of came about that I didn't know at the time was when I worked for a construction company in the North. I was working in administration, and my project manager, when he discovered I was Indigenous and he was non-Indigenous, wanted to share with me a story about something that transformed his perspective in life. And he spoke about how the company had been called out to a project where a newly built dam had just sprung a leak. He said they were out there for about 7 to 10 days and they were trying everything they could to try and fix this leak. The problem was that in order for them to fix the leak, they actually had to stop the leak. And everything they were trying wasn't holding up to the pressure because it was so far in the upstream of the dam. And then on about the 10th day, 7th to 10th day, somewhere in there, he said this Indigenous trapper came by and asked him what the problem was. And of course my boss shared with him, that they had this issue and they had to stop this leak so they could fix it. And they were running out of options. They called in experts from all over the world. And he said, like that, the trapper just looked at him with the most stunned look and said to him, I could stop that leak for you. And my boss thought, we got experts from all over. What's this guy gonna tell us, right? And so like that, the trapper said, I could fix that for you in a day. I could stop that leak for you in a day. And my boss thought, okay, there's no way. And so he said, well, we've tried everything. If you've got answers, we're all ears. Fire away. And like that, he said, the trapper said nothing else, turned around and walked away. He thought, he wasn't expecting me to call him on his bluff, is what his first instinct was. Well, the very next day, that trapper came back. He came back with a few beavers. They threw him in the upstream of the dam, and the leak was stopped within a few hours. It was watching him, his expression and his awe and his reverence that he had for that Indigenous lens that he never had before, and I could see it on his face. And it really made me aware about how Indigenous people, we do see the world differently. And because of that, we have different solutions to provide. I'm very, very proud and very grateful to be here to help these Indigenous knowledge keepers and speakers be able to be seen and heard in different arenas, because what they have to share is so important, and not just from an Indigenous perspective, but from a human, a planet, a very sustainable perspective. We have a lot of issues right now, globally, that we don't have a lot of answers for, or so we think. We have a huge resource. The world has a huge resource that I don't think they're aware of, and that is Indigenous people and their knowledge and perspectives. Dr. Fox is one of only a handful of Indigenous geneticists in the world, and he's one of the youngest, and he is the Indigenous geneticist that when he came forward into the world of genetics, he literally transformed it. National Geographic put out a video with Dr. Fox about how they have found the genetic marker for heart disease and gastric cancer from the Indigenous community. And now they can go on to find a cure. And that's what I mean by when I say that when you bring an Indigenous lens and perspective into your boardrooms and into your decision-making spaces, you're really bringing possibilities that you never probably would have even known existed. And that's, Dr. Fox's is just one example of so many of what happens just inherently that they bring when they walk into the room. They're bringing forward their ancestors' knowledge, and they're bringing forward their intergenerational experience, and they are the ancestors of our future generations. I think one of the great things that I'm so excited about with IISB right now, here during this time of COVID, is that we're able to create movement in bigger ways than just having presenters in different boardrooms and in different places bringing perspectives, which is huge in itself. We're actually able to work with organizations that are really helping to elevate us to make lasting change. One of the things about Indigenous people is we think in the lines of seven generations ahead of us and seven generations that came before. That's 150 years this way and 150 years that way. That's a 300-year plan opposed to a quarterly, annually, or 5-year report. And because we think in those realms, we ask different questions. And we look for different solutions than what would be in that shorter timeline. And so when we're working with partners right now, they're coming forward asking for guidance of what they can do, but they're not just looking for the moment. They're like, how can we join you now to go forward to make differences for the future? And it's not just about our ancestors, it's about theirs as well. And so they're starting to recognize that, and they're being very willing to allow us to take the lead, to guide them. And that's important, because I think when you work with Indigenous organizations and Indigenous people, is you really need to allow them to show you. Because if you come forward wanting to show them or have them come along, you're going to get the same of the same. But if you really want to see something different, allow that Indigenous person, allow that Indigenous organization to guide you on this journey. And I promise you, you're going to see something different, you're going to be a part of something different, and you're going to make an impact more than you ever realized.